Well, on behalf of the Calgary Chamber, I really want to say congratulations, and we're so happy that we can honor you this evening to recognize all that you've done in this community for so long. You are a selfless human being who has a generosity of spirit that is rarely found. And as was said by people in the video, you inspire people, you mentor people, and you always give of your time and your ideas. Even when you don't have a lot of time, you always find a little bit more. And I've had the privilege of knowing you since, when you were at Farm, and I was working for an IR company, and we were in the same building, and then our paths crossed when we were both on the board of the YMCA, and you were my mentor. You were the one who was assigned to me to help me understand how the board worked. So that's where I had my first encounter with Kim as a mentor, and I know that I benefited greatly while he was still on the board. So, you know, it's so important for us to be able to recognize you, and certainly the partnership that we have, Calgary Chamber and the university, to be able to elevate leadership in this city, because the leadership is what makes this city what it is, and the time that people give to educate the next generation, whether it's at the university or in the community at large. So, with that as a bit of a preamble, how are you feeling?
Well, as I said, I'm overwhelmed. I'm humbled to be able to be in this, to be recognized with some of the past recipients. Look at the accomplishments. Look at the leadership that they provided. I'm overwhelmed with people that are in attendance. I have, you know, people from boards that I'm sitting on, my Longview corporate boards and different things. I have my industry initiatives, my ad farm friends, farmers that I get to work with. Wow, to be able to have them come out and help us celebrate an award that the industry, I think, deserves in this thing. I feel pretty excited, pretty nervous, to be quite honest.
Maybe not as nervous as Connor McDavid, but anyway. So tell us a little bit about, you know, your path that you've taken. Yeah, tell us about yourself.
About me.
Wow. Your background and.
Okay, well, I'll give you a little bit of the personal and the professional. Personally, I'm a farm boy from Haskayne, Manitoba, and small.
Where is that?
Haskayne, Manitoba is about an hour northwest of Brandon. Our family farm goes back to 1882, and it's a good farming community. I had wonderful parents. We were very active in the community. I learned to be that way. We played lots of sports. 4-H was a huge part of my life. I probably bleed agriculture and I bleed 4-H. Went to University of Manitoba. After university, I moved to Edmonton. That's where I met my lovely wife, Carolyn. And we have three children and a wonderful son-in-law and 2 prince and princesses of grandchildren. So we're pretty. That's on the personal side. On the professional side, after university, I worked for a little bit in Edmonton, as I said, and then I came to Calgary. That was in 1984, with $5,000 and the support of a damn good wife. We saw an opportunity, and the opportunity was, if you go back in that time, agriculture was, the new technologies were really starting to come, whether it was the crop inputs, fertilizer, chemical, seed, animal health products, equipment, all of these. There was a pile of new technology that was coming on, and the companies had money, and they wanted to promote these and market these. Most of them didn't have marketing departments. And the agencies that they were using were consumer-based agencies. And they didn't understand, and they weren't even interested in agriculture. So there was an opportunity there. So that's what I started with, was Fieldstone. I have grade 12 English, can't draw a stick man, can't turn on a computer, but I surrounded myself with people who could. And we attracted clients, and we grew, and many of them, Maurice Delage and Art Frelick, et cetera, were in the room with us tonight, and they grew with us, and we did pretty well. We started to grow, and we bought a few things and merged a few others. And then a big thing happened in 2001, 2002, that period, and that's when Ross Harvey with Parker Group, and he was Art Frelick, bridged and brought us together. They were together, and we formed a partnership that became AdFarm. And we were similar-sized organizations, and the opportunity we felt was to what could we do to expand our Canadian business, but to go after the U.S. business. And that was a wonderful, wonderful partnership. And that's where Ben Graham and others have come on, and that's been a wonderful experience. We grew in the U.S. and all over. So I'll call that, as I said, that was operational leadership. I turned 50, and I said, I don't really want to do this anymore. Art had shown me the way and learned that it's time to give back and do some other things. So I moved into directional leadership, as I said, and did a number of things with companies and a lot of industry initiatives. That's where we got to do some things in the beef industry when many of the people are here today. And I was talking to Sherry and Jill. We're talking about the Canadian Roundtable for Sustainable Beef, and Jeff with McDonald's. We did so many things in that, so that was a fun one. Then we worked in on public trust, and we set up the Canadian Centre for Food Integrity. And so I've had the opportunity to do some really neat projects. Did another one in sustainability, the whole area of sustainability. And that's been wonderful. But as I said in the video, I'm an old bugger now. And it's time to turn the next generation and be the inspirational. So today, I still have my board responsibilities, and I've just taken on a new one, too, that's kind of interesting. I've been asked to join the National Circle for Indigenous Agriculture and Food, and I think that's an important initiative. And
Tell us a bit about that.
well, I'm not sure I can, because I don't really know yet. It's still early. I did say, it took me a minute. I said yes, but I think there's some governance issues I want to make sure that we're going to be okay on. So we're just starting into that. But if we look at the amount of land that First Nations employ or own, and if we look at that workforce that is sitting there, where it is not being utilized the way it could, I think the potential on what they're close to the land, the opportunities it could do in processing and the whole works like that, I think it could be some real wonderful things there. But then the other thing, Deb, is that today I get to also mentor. I have a semi-formal relationship with 8 young emerging executives, 6 females, 2 males.
In what sectors?
All over. Many of them are in agriculture. Some are here tonight. But there's also in the technology end of things. 6 are female, 2 are male, 6 in the corporate world, 2 in government. And I got to say, I'm having a blast there. And I am learning so much, because today, managing people, managing the issues is not like it was when I was there. There's so many things that are different. And
Tell me about that.
Well, if you look at work-life balance is a little more important today. Communications is challenging today. We went through COVID. How do you manage people during COVID? Mental health issues. You got aging parents that you're having to look at. These are all issues that are facing young executives today, and how they manage those is different than when I was running things in the things. By the same token, I've learned they're all very, very competent people. The youngest, I think, is 31, and the oldest is probably, I'm guessing, 40, early 40s. Very competent. I would say there's some similarities I've found.
I was about to ask you that.
Yeah.
What do they ask you? What are the similarities?
Well, the first one is they don't know anybody.
What do you mean? They don't know anybody?
No,
How's that possible?
they know people they work with, and they know people that are real close, but they don't know how to network. They don't know they know the importance of networking, but they don't know how to do it. So we have to help them and show them and to be able to make that happen so that they can enjoy that, but so that they can learn from that.
The Chamber has great networking events. I'm just going to give you that as I had to. You gave me it like that was the empty net goal, right?
Right, exactly right. And as Jim, just on that one, as Jim taught me many years ago, we have a leadership crisis in this country, in our many different areas. And he told me, he says, you know, you don't learn leadership at home, at school, or on the job. Because at school, they normally don't teach it, but maybe business school does it. But in general terms, they don't.
Gina, you may
and
have to
at
rebut
home,
that.
at home and on the job, there's always a boss. Your mom, your dad, there's a CEO. If you want to learn leadership, become a volunteer. One of the greatest things that we have in this city is the Calgary Stampede, because that's where you learn leadership. Because you can put people around the table, and you may be the CEO, and you may be a teacher, and I may be a janitor, but when we're working on the parade committee, we're all working on the parade committee. And you can learn so much, but you need to be able to get out and learn to do that and interact. So they know the importance of networking, but they don't know how, and they need a little push. The second thing I've learned or found is I don't think their financial skills are good enough.
Gina.
They can read an income statement, but I'm not so sure that they're reading financial statements and having a true heart and soul of how is the business operating and what is it going to take to move forward. And they could do with a little encouragement there. And I've also found that the women in particular have a confidence problem. And they are extremely competent, but they need a little encouragement to, you can do this, come on, you can go forward. So they need to be a little bit of coaching in times on how to go to a meeting, how to perform at a meeting, how to be able to do some of those things. And I find that more on the female side than on the male side. Male side, some of them maybe could back off a little bit. But those would be some of my learnings.
Bravado.
Yeah.
And if you were going to, like, when you talk about the people that you're mentoring, are they looking to grow businesses? Are they looking to grow and sell businesses? Like, how do they see the opportunities ahead of them, and how are you coaching them to sort of take advantage of those opportunities?
Well, in pretty well all cases, either their boss has come and said, this is a star, this is a rising star, but they only know us. That's one. Others have reached out themselves, and others have said, you know, there's a real bright young person doing neat things here. I would like to introduce you. We get talking, I tell them and that's where it is. And to be quite honest, you could probably handle, there's a real need here. And I just pause for a second. Tell a story. I remember I was asked to join the Canadian 4-H Council. And I came on the board and I agreed to do one term. And at the first meeting, we chose the executive. And there was a real push for me to become on the chair, vice chair, move into the chair position. Deb, I don't need another title. But I looked around and I could see why they were maybe saying that. But there was a really bright young woman, really bright. She was 27 years old. And I said, okay, here's the deal. I will take this for 1 year. But everything we do, she's coming with me. And at the end of that year, if I think she is growing to the situation, then she is going to take over and she will be your new CEO. Now let me say right now, 4-H does not have a gender issue, but 4-H does have an age issue. And that is, there's too many older people on boards and not enough young people. So when I worked with, their name is Val Stone, when I worked with Val, I said, we're going to have 3 meetings for every meeting they have. There's the meeting before the meeting, there's the meeting, and there's the meeting after the meeting. So the first meeting is the first time we'd get her board package, and I'd say, so do you understand it? Do you have any questions? Now, what question are you going to ask? Because I found that when a young person asks a bright question, all of a sudden these old bucks say, whoa, that's a pretty good gun. Whoa, right? They're elevated. Just look at, I don't know if you looked at the most recent Berkshire Hathaway meeting. What was the question that happened? It was the kid that said, Warren Buffett, if you had one more day with Charlie Munger, what would you do? It blew him away. Young people can do this, but they need to be able, so then we had the pre-meeting, then we'd have the meeting, and then we'd meet afterwards, and I'd say, so how did we do? How did I do? How did you do? How did Pete Smith do? And she grew and she learned, and it was so good. And she went in and she did such a wonderful job here. And I was so proud of that. And I said to myself, we got so many older, mature, experienced mentors that are sitting here. We got to tap into them. We got to let the next generation lead. But they need to lead from where we are, not to go backwards first. And that's old farts like me need to do that.
So just to follow on that, what would you tell young people that are considering a career in agriculture? It's changed so much and it continues to change. What would you tell them?
I would tell them that they have the opportunity to join the most inspiring and important industry, period. Number one. Number two, I would tell them, anything you love to do, you can do it in agriculture. If you love gaming, come into the robotics end of things. If you love science, you can do it. If you love banking, if you love money, you can do it in agriculture. If you love communication, by golly, we need you in agriculture. If you love engineering, you can do it in agriculture. Anything you want to do, you can do in agriculture. And you have an industry with a purpose. We do important things. We feed people. We look after the environment and many of the things. This is an industry with a purpose, and I think young people want to join industries that have a purpose. By golly, the agriculture and food industry is a good one.
So I think some of us take a lot of things for granted. We take our energy for granted, we take our water for granted as we're learning, and we take our food for granted. How do we change that narrative? How do we help people to understand the journey that brings the food to the table? And what's the messaging that's missing?
Well,
I mean, you were in the messaging business, so I'm going to guess you have a few ideas.
I think we have to look in the mirror right off the bat and say, we've been a little too humble at times, and we got to tell our story.
When you say we Canada, the industry,
agriculture, period, and agriculture and food industry. So I think that would be the first thing we need to do. But I think we need to also elevate with our political leaders as well.
I watched you in action with Ben Chin at a meeting in the fall, in Prime Minister's office.
Well, as you know, the Prime Minister's office, I came pretty hard on him.
You did.
But
then he asked for your phone number, so you must have done a pretty good job. So.
I said to tell the audience here, I said to them, we're an industry that's important. We are a major driver of this economy. We're a $143 billion industry. 1 in 9 Canadians are involved in the agriculture and food industry.
So hands up quickly, who knew that stat? Other than people not in the agri side. Yeah. That's still not a lot of people. Okay.
Yeah. We are a major driver of the industry. We are a major employer. Some of the most important issues facing Canadians today is food security and food affordability. We're in that business. I just drove back from Manitoba last night, and I drove across the country. By golly, we live in a beautiful country. And it is so beautiful and is so green right now. And you look at that, and you look at the crops that are growing and the calves that are jumping in the field, and you see the antelope and the deer, and where are they feeding? They're feeding on farmers' fields. We're involved in the sustainability of that, and I'm sure you're going to ask about that one. I mean, they're going in there. But the the other thing I think we need to understand, at least in my mind, is Canada is a pretty well-respected country around the world. And when we look and we think of what makes us Canadian, many of the things that makes us Canadian are Canadian values, and they're rural agricultural values. We value cooperation. We value working together. We value excellence. Those are things that we in the agricultural community provide ourselves. And I think more Canadians should maybe understand that a little bit as well. We have a lot to contribute in our industry, an awful lot to contribute. And I'm not sure that we're recognized for that. Too often we're sitting at the kiddies' table when I think we should be at the adults' table. And the Prime Minister and others should be recognizing what are we contributing, and just let us go and let us see what we could really contribute if you would let the shackles off and let us go.
So let's talk about those shackles. What are those shackles?
Oh, you know, first off, we got to pause and say we got way more benefits than we got shackles. Okay, look at our land, look at our people, look at the education, look at the technologies we have. We got all of those things to work from, but we got regulation overload, silliness in a lot of areas in that. We have infrastructure challenges. You know, you look at the Port of Vancouver. Port of Vancouver isn't just Vancouver. You close down the Port of Vancouver, you shut down Saskatchewan. Port of Vancouver is important to us. We need infrastructure to be able to move stuff. We're an export nation in that. We have labor challenges like many of the others that are done. We have some challenges in those areas, but look at what we could do. And we're not asking for relaxed standards. Not at all. We love high standards, but try to get a biodigester built in the feedlot today. Practically impossible. Ask Kendra. It's hard work. These are important things that we need to have. Come on, let us go forward and let us be able to take advantage of this. Let us use the technology that is available so that we can really advance, really move forward. We also have a profitability issue. You know, we got to be able to make the money that needs to be able to do so that you can make the investments. The investments today are huge, and it's hard for some in order to do so. But the profitability has to come. But let us go and let us see what we could really do.
When you talk about profitability, I mean, what needs to happen in terms of the adoption of technology? Are there issues that prevent the adoption of technology that would increase profitability? Like, what are the barriers to not sort of increasing the profits and revenues?
Well, Ross Harvey has a great line when he says that, you know, there's all this great technology, and the line he uses is good-looking dog food, but the dogs don't eat it, okay? There's a lot of technology. Show me that it really works. Show me that there's a return on investment, and you watch how fast farmers change. You look at GPS situation like that, how quickly the entire industry moves when technology is there. If you show the technology, you show the proper return on investment, by golly, we move quick, real quick.
So what's the most exciting technology out there right now?
Oh, geez. I think there's so many. I think that there's all the digital stuff that has been doing, and you know, we're farming per square inch now. We're farming per animal and doing different things, and there's so many neat things that are coming that can do stuff. But then if you look at the CRISPR technology and all the whole things that are coming with genetics and what can we do, wow, it blows your mind. This is not our grandparents' farm. This is not old McDonald. Old McDonald went broke a long time ago. This is progressive farmers that are doing great things, supported by an industry that has the tools that wants to do. We have the opportunity to take them. Let's be at the front of the edge to be able to do this and not at the back.
So a lot of times we're hearing that, you know, the family farms disappearing, that there's these big farms that are buying out the smaller farms. What does the farming landscape look like today across the country? Is it the consolidation continuing? How easy is it for smaller farms to access capital so that they can fund their operations? Tell us a bit about that.
Well, consolidation's happening everywhere, and consolidation's certainly happening at the farm level, and it'll continue to happen at the farm level. But what Ted Menzies sent out a tweet the other day, what is 97% of the farms in Canada today are family farms? Yeah, most of them are corporations for tax reasons, etc. And there's families, there's multiple generation of families that are growing, they're getting big. And yes, there's more of those that happen. You know, we need scale. We're an industry we're in general terms, we're in an industry, production agriculture is an industry that needs some scale. So it is going to be tougher on those other areas. Yes, the banking industry and the finance industry is having to be challenged to look at different things. And in that regard, I think, you know, groups like Farm Credit and some of the others, and Rabobank and some of the others that are coming in, and ATB and the whole works, they're really getting behind these kinds of things, and that's good. But it's got to be profitable. And we need new insurance programs. There's lots of things that we can do and we need to do, and they will be accepted, and they'll be accepted fairly quickly. But we're an industry that's got good growth, and yes, there'll be less farmers. There's in Alberta, there's 41,000 farms in Alberta, but and there'll be less of them, but there's not going to be less acres, or not too many less acres, and they're being farmed better and better. The animals are being farmed better and better all the time. It's good.
So the world changes in terms of climate, as we know, and when you look at what Alberta farmers face and ranchers face this summer, what are you most concerned about?
Well, it rained. Wow, thank goodness. And so we need a little blue sky and a little sunshine. We need, much of the world is probably having a pretty good crop. Prices are probably going to diminish. So that's a little bit of a struggle. Input costs aren't diminishing to near the extent. The livestock sector is doing pretty well, thank goodness. They've had some rough years as time goes forward as well. So, you know, profitability is always an issue that you're having to be on top of your game every day in order to do that, and they are. And we'll manage our way through this as we are with that. So I think we'll be all right.
Well, we'll hope for more rain for a whole bunch of reasons. You alluded to sustainability. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about sustainability, net zero agriculture. Some people talk about regenerative agriculture. What does that mean to you, and how important is it?
Well, first off, the term regenerative agriculture. It's a fancy new word. Okay. I found that in my time with what I've heard is, in Canada in particular, the people that are using the term regenerative agriculture are basically those that are preaching to farmers. And let me say that doesn't go over too well. Now, sustainability is a different deal. Sustainability is something that we take damn seriously. And that is environmental sustainability, it's economic sustainability, it's social, and it's governance. And I think we also need to recognize it's also communities. If you don't have a good hockey rink and a good school system and a good hospital on that, kids aren't going to come back home to farm. That's sustainability too. That's not just environmental sustainability. Now, if we look at it as environmental sustainability, we have a lot to be proud of in this country. We are leaders globally. And the Global Institute of Food Security in Saskatchewan came out the other day with the new stats that show not only are we are leading by a bloody long ways. In the whole area of canola, we are 62% ahead of the next closest. That's Australia. If you look at our livestock sector and what we're doing in the grasslands and the projects that are being done in those things, those are leading edge opportunities here. But that message isn't getting across, and we're being pushed in a lot of areas. Now, we talk about carbon. Come on, agriculture is carbon. It's photosynthesis. You know, There's good carbon and there's bad carbon. We need good carbon to feed a world, and the world's hungry. We need more. But there's bad carbon too. It's emissions, nitrous oxides, methane, etc. And we have to get our bad carbon down. And we're working like crazy with new technologies and new practices, and we can do that. And we need to be recognized for that. And I found that in agriculture, when you reward, a little spoonful of honey goes a lot further than a stick. And right now, our political leaders seem to be having a few too many sticks. And we are sustainable. We can do better. We will do better. Let us continue to move forward. Let us have the technologies to do this. Let us share the practices that we can, and just watch us continue to lead, not just in Canada. That is also an exportable service offering that we can share with the world.
How worried are you about the U.S. election and what that might do from a protectionist standpoint and trade?
I'm worried. Well, I don't know where the election's going to go. All I'm saying is the protectionist attitude of the U.S. is sincere. We need the U.S. U.S. is our best customer. We need the U.S. And I'm concerned that if we have tariffs that are put on that punish us, that could be very harmful to our country. Now, I do think that we have to get a little bit closer than we have been a little while ago. I spent some time with the former Undersecretary of Agriculture for Trade and Foreign Affairs the other day. And we had a very good discussion on different things. And I said to him, you know, if President Trump comes in, he was with the Trump administration, President Trump says he imposes a 10% tariff, that'd be pretty painful to our country and to our industry. What advice would you have for us on that? I thought his comment was very good when he said, President Trump is proud of a few things. One of them is USMCA.
Which he wants to renegotiate.
True. The gentleman said, remember, it's the USMCA, not NAFTA 2, the USMCA. That was his name. I would continually remind him about how good it is. I think that's pretty good advice. Number two is that I think we need to get a little closer to the states, various states, and to be able to explain. We have a North American plan here. There's many good things that we can do and are doing. Our beef industry is probably our best example of how we operate in North America. This is important. We got to make sure we do it. Yes, he's probably going to, but President Biden's pretty protectionist as well. So I think we need to be really close. My dad taught me a long time ago, if you don't want to get kicked by a horse, you get close to it. And I think maybe that's a pretty good advice.
I'm sure there's a few people in here who've learned that lesson. But, you know, we talk from the energy sector's perspective, we've always talked about how important it is to diversify markets so that we're not so beholden to the United States, even though it is an important customer. You're not saying that that's the agriculture sector.
No, I'm not. Clearly, all markets are important to us right now, and we need to be able to develop them and be able to go for them. And that's particularly important on the prairies. We're an export nation, and if we look at, you know, Asia is really, really important to us, and we got to be able to do some things a little bit better. And I'll come back to where I said before. You know, I think our negotiators, our governments, would do well if they had more agriculture people at the table in the negotiation. I think maybe there's some commonality between agriculture and some of the issues that others want in the world. And I think maybe having some agriculture people that can remind them about how good our food is, that we are a supplier of high quality food, and look at how we are growing our food and the environmental footprint that we're doing. I think you would maybe like to do a little bit more with us called Canada. And I think that's a message that we aren't playing that card to the level we could be. And I would encourage us to do that.
We need agriculture ambassadors across the country. One of the things we've often talked about too is just the intersection between agriculture and energy, and the issues that both industries have in common. How do we advance these for the betterment of the country, and how do we sort of is there a way to work together so that we present a united front that?
Yeah. So Deborah, on that regard, there's a lot of similarities between the energy industry and the agriculture and food industry. There's a lot of similarities.
What do you see them as being?
Well, we're both resource-based. We're both primarily export-oriented. We're both high-tech. There's lots of similarities. We both got public trust issues. We both got awareness issues. We got some things that we can learn from them, good and bad, and I think we got some things they can learn from us, good and bad.
Such as? What can the energy sector learn from the ag sector?
I think the most trusted, I believe the research will show that the most trusted profession by consumers is farmers. Farmers can tell a pretty good story. I think maybe we could learn from that. Not so sure that we always follow billionaires real well. Look at our food supply chain systems, stuff like that. So I think we can learn a few things on that. What I would love to see, Deborah, is, in my mind, is we're a natural resource country. I would love to have the Minister of Natural Resources that is at the same level as the Minister of Finance and the Minister of Global. Like, that's at the top. And underneath that, I see at least 3 key components. We have an energy component, we have an agriculture and food component, and we have a critical minerals department. Those are all part of our natural resources. And you could maybe say forestry and fisheries as well, but let's just pause in the first 3. I think each of those areas needs to have a few things. First off, let's look at what is needed in those different areas. In agriculture, in my mind, we need to look at Canada not as a united, similar group. We're a country of regions. We're an industry of regions. What the West needs is different than what Quebec needs. Okay, let's recognize that. Let's provide the priorities. What does the West need to be able to survive, to expand, to be able to grow? What kind of resources do we need to be able to, investments that we need to be able to do? Let's reinvest like that. And then what kind of leaders do we need to have in that regard? And we need leaders, not tokenisms that hand out checks every once in a while. We need leaders. And that's what we need in agriculture. And in my mind, if we had a federal government, and even provincial, when we had natural resources at the top shelf, and agriculture and energy and critical minerals are being supported so that they could do, you just watch what we can do as Canadians in Canada. Wow. I'd be inspired by that. And I think our whole industry would say, how can we get behind that? We want to get behind that.
Well, we start a lot of things at the University of Calgary, so maybe this is something that we can think about in the School of Public Policy and start advancing that conversation. I wanted to ask you something else. You helped establish the Canadian Centre for Food Integrity. Tell us about that and why it was important to you. Building trust amongst consumers is very, very important. Our industry represents a small percentage of the population. Consumers are interested about food. They don't know much about it, but they're interested in it. And they need to be given information that is factual so that they can make the decisions they want. We also need an organization, or we need to have messaging that will be able to counter some of the misinformation that is being spread by activists and by groups that are very good at raising money to be able to do different things. And in order to do that, we need to do it as an industry.
We can't just do it as corporations or as a farmer or as commodity groups. We are much stronger when we go together. So the Center for Food Integrity was put together, and it is the entire agriculture and food ecosystem. It's producers, it's the industry sector, it's companies, it's governments, it's all sitting, it's the only organization I know where we all sit around the same table. Are we making progress? Got a long way to go, a long way to go. But we need to be able to inform people. We need to be able to, how do you build public trust? The model is pretty simple. It's 3 pillars, foundation and a roof. The first pillar is do the right thing. Well, what's that? You ask the industry, they know what the right thing is. They're doing it. So, well, I'm doing the right thing. Says who? Says me. Well, that's not good enough. Second pillar is you need to have a trusted assurance system. You need certification, or you need third-party endorsement or whatever. The third pillar is you better start telling somebody. We need to communicate. And we need to have a communication built on a pillar, on a foundation of continuous improvement. We used to put the feedlot by the creek. We don't do that anymore. That's improvement. There's new things we can do. And then we need a roof. There's too many groups. We need to come together. We need a hub to bring it together. And we need to throw the logos away and focus on doing it together. And yes, different companies play a different role, but let's work together. And when we start doing that, I think the consumer is going to say, hey, look at what we really are doing. They want to know, how are we handling the environment? We should tell them how we're doing this, and tell them in a way that resonates with them. And that's going to take money, and we're going to have to belly up to the bar, put our nickels on the table. Come on, let's do it together. That's what Center for Food Integrity is trying to do.
Yeah. And so, you had Ad Farm, you had Fieldstone, and the world of advertising and communication has changed so dramatically. So how do you tell that story with so many different platforms?
Well, ask Ben. Well, social media, needless to say, plays a pretty important role. So does being able to provide the comments, so that we can have simple messages, so that we can share it with our families, so that when we're sitting around the Christmas table or the whatever else it is, we're talking about these things and we're sharing messages that resonate. We are pretty good storytellers, but we need to be encouraged and be able to give the facts a little bit, put the facts in with the story and make it come to life. And I think we got a ways to go in that regard.
So I'm going to just ask you a couple more questions. You said you're in phase 3 of your career, in the leadership phase. You mentor people, as you've told us. Who was your mentor?
Oh, gee. I've been very, very fortunate. Jim's a mentor. I gotta tell you, I don't know what year we met, Jim, 93, 94. We were doing pretty well as a company, and I knew we had to give back a little bit more. And I didn't know how to do that. So I reached out to some icons in the community, and one was Jim. And I remember going to see him. He didn't know me, and I didn't know him. And we chatted, as you know, Jim Gray, you can chat with lots of things. And he was very interested in what we were doing in agriculture. And then I told him what we were up to. And he asked me a question that I will always remember. He said, where does a battered farm wife go for help? And I said, I don't know. I suspect she either goes to the city or she stays home. And he said, yep, you're probably right. Focus your resources and your time on rural issues. People like me will look after the cities. There's not enough attention in rural. So that's why we would do things with 4-H. That's why we would do the Canadian Food Grains Bank. That's why we would do those kinds of things that we would involved in. So I've been fortunate to have the Jim Grays and now the the top 7 over 70 folks that are like, wow, come on, that's wonderful. I've also been very fortunate to have partners. Ross Harvey, Art Freilich, Morris Delage years ago. These are icons, and the discussions that we would have that would go, I learned so much just to be able to meet with them, and those are mentors. And now it's time for me to be mentoring the next generation and do stuff like that, and to encourage older ones as well to keep doing that, because I think mentorship's important.
It keeps you young, too.
Sure does.
That's for sure. So what final message would you like to leave the audience with tonight?
Well, I thought you might ask me, because this is the University of Calgary, I thought you might ask me a question of, the University of Calgary doesn't have a faculty of agriculture. Should they? Let me add, they do have a very good school of veterinary medicine, and congratulations to the dean and the good work they're doing there. But I don't think we should have a faculty of agriculture at the University of Manitoba, or University of Calgary. And I say that because there are really good faculties in other universities, and there isn't enough money to go around. We don't need to splinter that. So I think we should be resourcing the ones we already have, the University of Alberta, Olds College, Lakeland, Lethbridge. Let's support those ones. However, you don't get off easy, President. I do have 3 suggestions for you. My first suggestion is this. I think you should challenge every one of the major faculties. Dean of Haskayne School of Business, have an ag business course or 2 or 3. Hey, engineering, have an ag engineering course. Hey, communications, have an ag communications course. Utilize the faculties that we already have. That's my first suggestion. The second suggestion I have is that you should have 2 new programs, new courses. The first one is on our food system. How big is it? How does it work in this country? How involved is it? The whole food system. And I think you should also have a policy system. And you can utilize the Simpson Center and the School of Public Policy to be able to teach that. And then the third thing I think you should do is you should set up a social club. Remember, agriculture is culture, and we need a social club. And I would suggest that if you're a member of the social club and you take those 2 courses, then you would be given a minor in agriculture or a certificate in agriculture, and you watch how fast the others, what we can do to start bringing others in this community to see the value of our agriculture and food system, because they will want to be part of that. They will want to be part of the social club. Let me assure you, nobody has more fun than Aggies. and then put it together and have them learn and have them start spreading the word. And I don't think that's going to cost you very darn much money, Mr. President. So that's one message I would share. The other message I think I would conclude with this is agriculture is the most exciting, and agriculture and food industry is an exciting industry to be involved in. Very exciting. Join us. Make us better. Challenge us. Inspire us. I think Canada will be better, and I know our industry will be better. I also want to say one other thing, and that is thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you to my family for the support they provide. Thank you for our industry players and support. Wow, this is overwhelming. Thank you, Chamber. Thank you, University, Haskayne. We need more things like this. Thank you.